the Premarket Pulse. Today is a huge day because NVIDIA is going to be reporting earnings, and it could completely shape what's getting ready to happen for the rest of the market. We got a chart right now showing the SPY right here, and you can see that we basically have been in this range. It's really since right around October when you look at it. So it's going to be a big deal, and NVIDIA has been in a range even longer than that, which we'll look at later. So NVIDIA could be that catalyst that either takes us higher or takes us lower, and that's the reason why I thought this broadcast today would be very good to have. Let's begin by doing a quick overview about what's going on in the news, okay? Yesterday we had the State of the Union address, and I'll make this a little bit larger for us to look at. So, and the equities responded positively, and we're not really, the tariffs have been something that the market has not really liked. And it looks like the Supreme Court shot down the tariffs, but the administration found a loophole in something they can use for 150 days. But that's not lasting, and the market being forward-looking, I think this is actually bullish for the market in regards to, and once again, I'm not speaking in regards to like what are my political ideals or something like that. Only when I talk about politics, I'm talking about how does it affect the stock market, how does it affect my trading and my investing, okay? So I just want to make sure that we're on the same page with that. Anyhow, the Supreme Court shooting down the tariffs and then the administration utilizing something that allows them to allow more tariffs for the next 150 days. That's down here, actually. That's not something that's actually, it might have short-term implications, like maybe in the next week or month. But the longer-term implications are that these tariffs are no longer going to be a drag on the market. And, that's been a lot of volatility. Every time tariffs have been coming out and being spoke of by the administration, it's knocked the market down, and then the market's tried to get up. So in some ways, that's been very difficult to be trading. In other ways, it's been fantastic for day trading. So. Oil is hovering near its highs. We also have the Iran tensions, that are happening right now, which, also are participating with the oil situation. And Bitcoin, it didn't get a mention in the SCOTUS speech last night, but it's up today. And so I thought maybe it got a mention. I did not watch the SCOTUS speech, but I took my notes, from the internet, so to get the notes for you today. One of the big things that the administration has put out there is for materials, and that they're putting in a $10 billion direct fund for critical materials, lithium, nickel, graphite, grid modernization. All of this is being driven by AI. This is something I've been trying to actually express to people for quite a while, is that AI has actually changed the landscape about what is important for our economy. If you look at this, I have this sorted by the winners over the last year. And if you look at this list, you're going to see that all of these winners are materials. Materials. Right here, that's precious metals, okay, which is kind of materials, but it's not really used for materials. It's just precious metals. So it's it's for protecting your money. But really, this entire list here is, if you keep going down the list, it's in regards to materials. Materials, computer hardware is kind of materials, luxury goods, materials, heavy equipment materials. And then you get into energy. And you look across here, and this is for the last year. Here, let me do this again. Let's take it from here to here. For the last year, you've only had a couple of losing times where it has not actually increased. So materials are incredibly important. But then when you look down beyond that, then you start getting into energy. And then you get into the semiconductors and once again, materials, computer equipment, steel, that kind of stuff. So I'm telling you that materials are incredibly important, and AI is driving that. So that's something to think about when you're doing your investing. You know, it's always better to buy the bullets when there's a war, right? And the materials and the grid modernization, things like Bloom Energy and other energy stocks, those are winners. One of the things that was mentioned also in regards to this was he was talking about tax reliefs for the industrials. I doubt the tax reliefs will go through because of this. We do have what's called a presidential party curse. Since 1946, you usually lose about 26 seats in the midterms. So we'll probably have a split government next year, and I'm sure that the market will probably take that into consideration. However, there's still a lot of power in regards to executive orders. So moving on to the economic calendar, let's take a look at real quick about what we're looking at on the economic calendar. And we had the consumer confidence report came out. It's kind of surprising. The consumer confidence, I was kind of surprised to see that we actually beat on consumer confidence. So that's good. And if we go down to today we need to be paying attention to this, crude oil for today, right? So that comes in at 10 o'clock. So be careful around 10 o'clock. And then tomorrow, we got pretty important numbers on the continuous jobless claims. Let me make my highlighter a little bit larger for you, okay? So the jobless claims right here. And then the really big one right here in regards to the Fed, that will be Friday morning at 8:30. So that pretty much covers that. Going to the earnings calendar. The big one today obviously is NVIDIA right here, NVIDIA, right? But I'm very interested in how Snow does, because Snow has been kind of beaten down. And then also, I use Zoom, and I'm also a user of artificial intelligence. And I do think that Zoom is doing some really good stuff, so I'm interested to see that. We had Home Depot report earlier, and they did pretty well, and they're continuing to move up with their price, with their stock. So I'm expecting that Lowe's probably comes out in about a half hour. I'm expecting they're going to do pretty well. On Thursday, I'm interested to see BidU in regards to the China trade. And then also Dell will be interesting. And then CoreWeave, which has been getting a lot of press lately and has had some great moves. That would be interesting to look at. And then Sound, which is another investment of NVIDIA. Mara, this may be interesting to see considering how badly it's been beaten down. It was at one time $20 a share, and now it's down to, $6 or $7 a share. So we have some economic red flags out there. If you're watching any other YouTube channels, you're going to hear about these Hindenburg omens. We got essentially like 5 of them have fired over the last month. I think there's something like 7 Hindenburg omens. I'm not real familiar about that, but basically it doesn't surprise me, because we have a lot of things going on in the market that are kind of hanging over its head, and that's kind of keeping it's struggling to break out, to new highs above 7,000. We're kind of stuck between 6,800 and 7,000. This is pretty important right here, this housing breakdown number right here. We're at the lowest number since 2019, and this kind of indicates structural weakness in the U.S. economy. And then also we had a repo warning last night. Overnight was spiking. And Jamie Dimon has actually been raising the alarm bells on this. So there's some red flags that are hanging over our head. We also got, obviously, the Iran situation. You got the carry trade, the possible unwind of the carry trade. You can't play black swans. You just kind of have to prepare for them. So we have to remember that we do have these things, and then make sure that you're not maybe going all in, keeping some firepower for if you do get that large move down, say the next day. Let's take a look at the heat map and see who the winners are and who the losers are in the pre-market. So generally speaking, we're looking at the electronic technology is actually doing very well. Apple is down today, but it was up massively yesterday. Google and Microsoft are catching a bid. Looks like Meta's catching a bid. So your Mag 7 are doing great coming out of the gate, and Amazon as well, right? So looking really good there. The market's actually looking, and then we also have your semis. So the market's looking really good in the pre-market, and then your energy trade is looking great as well. So I'd say that's looking pretty good in the pre-market. All right. So let's go ahead and do some pre-market prep and take a top-down look at the pre-market. Let's look at some charts, which is my favorite thing to do. All right. So when we're looking over here, you're going to see I have a little bit of a dashboard set up over here. It shows you on a 5-minute time frame, a 15-minute time frame, an hourly time frame, a 4-hourly time frame, daily, and then weekly. How is price action doing in those time frames? And you can see that basically for the pre-market things that I'm capturing right here, we're pretty much up in every time frame except that the ES and the Dow, and it looks like the NQ are down on the weekly there, on the weekly. But other than that, I mean, we're up in every time frame, so we're looking pretty good there. So let's take a look over here now at the, actually we just use this down click area there. And the dollar is actually flatlined, so we'll, and let's look at the VIX, and the VIX is actually down. So it looks like we're looking pretty bullish in the pre-market. You can see also that IBIT right here is doing very well, and RK, which to me is also a risk-on indicator, IWM, QQQ. This is all risk-on right here for the market. So looking pretty good right there. And then RSP and TLT is down below the SPY, which is what you want to see. So looking good there, 2% up on Bitcoin. How do you like that? On the sectors, semis are up over 1%. IWM's up, TLT's in the basement. That's exactly what you want to see for a risk-on market. Materials are catching a bid, and so is technology. We go into the extended sectors, and you have silver. Man, silver's been on a tear lately, guys. Look at the weekly, well, the weekly percent isn't really all that much, but I think on Monday, silver, let's take a quick look at this. Monday, I think this might have been Monday this week. Well, on 212 we had this huge down day, and then we had, no, this is it right here. We had a gap down on 217. 217 was, okay, that was Tuesday of last week. So we had that gap down on Tuesday of last week, and then from then on we've actually been moving upwards with silver. And this is a daily chart, so it's not showing where it's at right now, which is, oh, I'm not showing price on this, so let's add price into this. There. So silver is right now trading at 82. Silver was was struggling between 78 and 80 yesterday. So that is huge for silver. It's huge for silver being over top of 80. We got Mara leading, we got copper up, and your semis are up. over 1%. Down in the basement, you got solar and TLT. Other than that, everything's up in the green. So, and the Mag 7 looks like the bid's coming in on the Mag 7 as we saw on that other report. Let's take a look at the SPY. Oop. There you go, the SPY. And I'm going to change to a flexible grid so we can see every time frame. Now, the way you can see these time frames is, let me just do this. So this is your 15-minute right here. My drawing's terrible. This is your hourly. This is your 4-hour. Here's your daily right here. And here's your weekly right here. Okay? Please excuse my drawing. I'll try to draw better. So, but on the SPY, you can see that we're coming out of this balance range that we've been in on the last 15-minute charts. So it's actually looking really good right there. Have a nice trend line coming out of that, right? And that trend line is even looking good over here on the hourly time frame as well. So the SPY. Really, it's actually challenging the 690 right here, if you look. So that's good as well. It would probably be good if we could get just a little bit above that 690 if you're looking for a trade on the SPY, and then come back and retest it, and then off to the races. We may not see that. I imagine that what's going to end up happening is we're going to kind of go into one of these kind of things, waiting to see what happens with NVIDIA. That's my anticipation anyhow. What you guys can do is, if you want, you can go ahead and you can put in the chat any tickers that you want me to look at. But what I'm going to do right now is I'm going to go over some my ideas that I had about NVIDIA. So I'm going to go back to my Word document real quick to give you some information on that. So this is my NVIDIA prep for you. Price is expected to move somewhere between 6 and 7%. However, historically, it usually stays between about a 3 to 5% range, okay? Yesterday, we had some huge news. You know, Meta said that they're using AMD to deploy some of their AI stuff over the next 5 years. They also received warrants of $160 million, making them somewhat of a part owner in AMD. So they are bought into AMD, and that's the reason why AMD just really screamed yesterday. AMD has been being called the American money destroyer, but I think maybe you might want to look at that and begin looking possibly, pullbacks may be viable in AMD. We do want to consider that it's been really beaten down, so it might be one that actually can continue to move up. The stocks that are flying high are the ones that I'm worried about more. Anyhow, so one of the things that's, and this is regarding NVIDIA. This is a point that I want to make regarding NVIDIA. The Mag 7 is trying to diversify out of NVIDIA. They're still tied to them because they bought things and they're tied to their software and their infrastructure. But Google has done it. Now you see it happening with Meta, and Amazon's already talked about doing it as well. So it's really important for us to understand that when we're looking at NVIDIA and trying to see what are we thinking about in the future. They've been running 75% margins. 75% margins and continuing to expand, and they own 90% of the market. It's anticipated that they're not going to own 90% of the market within 5 years. They'll own 75% of the market, so they're still a great stock, but a lot of this has already been priced in, so let's consider that. Here's your NVIDIA's cheat sheet for after the bell. Take a look at this, do a screenshot. I'm not going to go over it right now, but if you want it for the, if you're going to be trying to trade it or in that post-market, you might want to take a look at that. The bear case for NVIDIA is they talk about hyperscaler diversification. The 170 level could be tested, and we lose that 170 level. It's 165, 160, which is what I've been saying for a while. and then Blackwell yields better than expected guidance, and Rubin platform is aggressive, then we could see it go over top of 195. And in that case, you might end up seeing a, trying to think of the word, a gamma squeeze, because that stock has been held down below 195 for the longest time. We'll take a look at that when we take a look at the chart. I wanted to give you what has happened over the last 4 quarters, and this is what has happened. Usually we've had a spike, you know, in the earnings announcement, and then once they start digesting that spike, we end up losing it. But a 1 week later move, generally speaking, we've been a little bit higher. So so basically what I'm saying is I'm expecting it to spike on the, you got to go by price action, okay? No person knows. But my expectation is that it's going to spike on the news on the earnings per share. But then as we begin going into guidance and everything begins being digested, it's going to be giving back those gains. And here's the reason why I think NVIDIA needs to pull back. And I'll show you this in a second. But if you look at the last 5-year returns for the semis, Qualcomm out of the top 10 has delivered 200%, essentially doubling your return. AMAT, TSM has tripled your return. Lam Research has tripled your return. Micron has quadrupled your return. ARM Holdings has given you 5x. Broadcom has given you 6x. And look at this. NVIDIA is 2,850% over the last 5 years. This is the number they're having problems with, and this is the number why they have been going sideways since basically, I want to change my thing here, there we go. Why they've been going sideways basically since August. I just don't know that you can continue to sustain that type of growth. 2,800% in the last 5 years. Let's take a look at the NVIDIA chart, so we begin to prepare for this. Actually, we don't need this sidebar. So, and we'll look at the day. Well, we'll go over here. Change this to daily and hourly. So you have the hourly here on the left, and then you have the daily on the right. And then my 1,000 indicators down on the bottom. Most of them are custom indicators. Sometimes it's easier just to go ahead and turn off, even though I love my indicators. Wait a second here. Even though I love my, no, let me do this. There. Even though I love my indicators, sometimes it's easier to look at the chart with them off for a second. So if you look at this chart here with them off, you can see it's had this incredible move, you know, for the last 5 years from there to there, right? And what we're in right now is a consolidation. It's been basically going sideways from here to here since July. And that's not a bull flag pattern that I'm showing you. I'm just showing you the time frame. So it feels to me like it needs to pull back, maybe even come back and retest that prior breakout. You saw here that you had a bullish falling wedge. Bullish falling wedges are notorious for doing this and then this. Okay. They always talk about how it's bullish, so it comes back to the other, but then the pattern is actually a continuation pattern into the downside. So that's what we're dealing with right now. So you could easily see it spike up, but can it actually get above that? Can we actually begin seeing some more movement higher than that? I'm not so sure, because you see here on the previous time when we had this consolidation like this, and we had even a larger consolidation of the range, which we're kind of in right here, right? We have that, and then we have our little mini consolidation. What happened? We had to break down first in order to then get over this number. get over this high. I think that's kind of, to me, that's what I believe that NVIDIA needs to do. Now, you know, what it does and what I believe it needs to do, it could be two totally different things. You have to play price action. So let's take a look at the chart and let's look at our pivots. So right here, if you're playing the aftermarket, this is your breakdown bar right here. So 196, it's consolidating right here over at 194. So I don't think 196 is going to be a stopper for you. But you know, what I've seen it do a lot of times is it'll come to these numbers right here. Like these are gaps right here. That's a gap right there, and then that's a high right there. So basically 200 and 204. You could easily see it spike up to that. It hits that number and it doesn't get over that number. You might be in for a good scalp. If it goes down to the downside, here's your numbers right here, 177.61 and 170. And you can see that we've had 3 times where that 170 has been tested. So it hits that downside, it'll probably bounce off of it. But if it goes down lower than that, then we're looking more in the area of right here, 160, 163. You don't have a lot of areas, checkpoints here off of that. Let's take a look at the weekly chart. Yeah, you can see, so you got 150, here's the numbers right here for your pivots on a weekly chart if it's ended up playing down. I'm gonna just hold it right here in case you wanna take a screenshot. And at this time, we're 27 minutes in, and I wanted to keep this down to 30 minutes, but I'll go a little bit longer. I'll go 5 to 10 minutes longer than that, so I'll go up to 8:40. I have one person asking about GE, so let's take a look at GE then. I'm going to go back to my flexible grid because that gives me the biggest overview. I know that some of you guys really hate my flexible grid, and I apologize about that, but it's really beneficial to look over here on the weekly to see where you're at. And GE is on a tear. You could see, you know, I have these labels on all of my things. These are custom labels that I build in Thinkorswim. And you could see that every single one of those are green. So, you know, GE is a strong stock right now. Love how it's come back here on the daily. If you look here on the daily, it's come over and it's... Okay, there we go. It's tested the breakout, and it tested it with a hammer candle. You gotta love that. You gotta love that look on the daily. And when you go over here to the 4 hour, it's even better. Look at this hammer candle right here. That's beautiful. So you could, this is right here. It's actually breaking new highs, right? 346.50, right? So you know, you could come in right here if you want. It would be great to come back and test it right here on this line again. But you could actually, you know, set a stop loss right around there below maybe the 340, 350 if you want to be long this thing on more of an investment kind of a trade. This stock looks great. I would consider even day trading a stock like this. And you would be, what you want to do is you want to be bullish on the day trade because your longer term time frames are actually very strong. What about any other stocks? Anybody have any suggestions for any other stocks? And if not, what I'll do is I'll just do a quick overview of the Mag 7. All right, well, I'll tell you, put it in chat if you want to look at some other stocks, but I'm going to go ahead and I'm going to take a look at Amazon real quick, which is the next leader here on the board. It's up in the 1 hour, the 4 hour, and the daily time frame is slightly up, and the weekly it's down, and then it's down on the 5 minutes, so it has a pullback right now on the 5 minute chart. Amazon, you know, they had a good report. They missed on some things, but honestly, Amazon, I'm bullish on Amazon, even though we're in a bear flag for Amazon. Okay, right here, you can see it's a bear flag without a doubt. But, you know, these flags, they only break down about 63 to 65% from the lower end and then go down. Sometimes you see them break up. And when they break up, they move hard. So honestly, like what you have here with Amazon is you have a gap right here, and then you have more downside right here. So if it gets over or under any of those numbers, basically 211 and 196.50, it could really run. It's pushing the 211 right now, as you can see over here on the on this hourly chart, and even over into the 15-minute chart is pushing up against that 210. So Amazon has some interesting ideas behind it as well. Let's take a look at SPY. No, not SPY. Let's take a look at Microsoft. Took Microsoft short a couple of days ago or yesterday. I can't remember. My days run together, but made some good money on Microsoft short. Took it short here, yeah, Monday. It just shot down right after the open, and it just couldn't do anything. I took it short right there, I believe. But this one also, it's in a long-term downtrend right now if you look at it on this 4-hourly chart, on the 4-hour chart. But it also looks like it's putting in sort of a bullish divergence. So it would be something to watch to see if we could actually move back up. Probably, you know, once again, these things, they do like this. Nothing goes straight up, but eventually it could probably get back up to that 425 area. If you look and you see the first and second measured moves, that's when I had predicted that it would go down to 425, and I predicted that about a week before it ended up happening. So, still watching the chat, guys. No ideas for other stocks. Moving down to the next one. Let's see. We're going to go with Tesla. Tesla was a beast yesterday. So what are we looking at on Tesla? Well, Tesla, right now, Tesla needs to get over that downtrend to really, for me to be considering it. It's on a daily downtrend. So, but it was bullish yesterday, so that was good. Okay, it looks like it's trying to get over that. On the 1-hour chart, you're setting up a very nice consolidation after a nice impulse move. That's essentially what a bull flag is. I'm liking that consolidation, and the reason why I like that consolidation is because it's consolidating underneath of these numbers right here. It's consolidating right underneath these numbers. That's excellent. That means that we're building up energy, we're building up power to knock down that door. So that actually is looking pretty good. I would love to see it get over this number right here, 410.75, and then back test it, and then test it back. So that's it for Tesla. Let's see, Meta. The big news yesterday, Meta. So, even though Meta had that big news, it didn't really affect the stock that much. I guess it had a little bit of a pump up here. It was mostly AMD that ended up getting the benefit out of that news. And Meta's a little bit in a downtrend right now. But one of the things about Meta that I think people should know is that it's also in what's considered a 5-wave up on a very, very long-term down frame. And so you might want to look, it's in what they call a 4th wave pullback. You might want to look at where our opportunities or where it actually builds up structure. And let's take a look at Apple, and then we're going to close the stream unless anybody has something they want me to specifically to look at. Apple had a massive day yesterday. I actually came in and I tried to short this at the top, but couldn't quite get the numbers to work the way I wanted to. So, and you could see it gave it back after the 275, but it only gave back about half, which is bullish on that. So definitely want to watch this. We have strong support with the 50 period. It's slightly under these moving averages, but really really it's actually consolidating right there with all three moving averages consolidating nice and tight. This is what I call a compression zone right here. It's creating this compression area for a very strong move. So I think Apple is one to watch, but you want to watch it long or short. I think it could have some, it could be shaking you out in this area. I would like to see it get above this area and then go, or get below this area and then go. Okay, that's the way I would want to play Apple. But for me right now, Apple's hands off because it's really got too much. It's too much in a chop zone. It's in the middle of a chop zone. So I wouldn't take Apple right now on a play. Somebody asked about Palantir. I have not talked about Palantir. I'll be glad to do that. I still have 4 minutes until 8:40, so I'll continue with you guys until 8:40. Then I'm going to have to cut it off so I can continue to do my prep. And, oh, I put it in the wrong ticker there. My fault. All right, so looking at Palantir. Palantir is, obviously, it's been just torn apart. You look on the weekly chart right here. And we knew eventually that was going to happen, but, when is it, going to happen? Because that stock just seemed like it was going up and up and up forever. If we take a look over here at the daily, let's just zoom into this daily. We'll go over to, let's just maximize the cells easier. So we zoom into this daily. It's still down below that 5-period moving average and the 10-period moving average. And the 20 period is still sloping down. If you're looking for this for an investment, you really want to at least get that 20 period somewhat flat lining, and you want to get over top of that 5 period. So for me, this is not for an investment purposes, but it might have. Let's take a look and see on that hourly and the 4 hourly. Yeah, so it does look like it's trying to turn around. If you look over here on this 4-hour chart, let's zoom this one back out too. You look on this 4-hour chart, and I don't have the 5 and the 20 on here, so let's show them. All right, you look over here, we're catching a curving up 5. We've caught the 10. It's getting resistance. I love this look right here. It's getting resistance off of the 20 and off of the 50. So I expect it to pull back and retest that 5. It might even swipe through the 5, but that's giving this line, that's giving your 20 and your 50 a chance to actually level out. If you look at other times when this has happened, if it actually holds that, see, it didn't hold it here, it ended up going lower, right? I can't find one where it's tight like that, but these moving averages being tight, that's inferring that actually when it gets tight, the moving averages, see how tight they are right here? And all of a sudden we had a huge drop down. That's the moving averages got somewhat tight here. You got a big drop, a big pull up. You look for those tight moving averages, and you see those kind of moves. Go into an hourly chart. The hourly chart is looking much more constructive. This 131.25 is an area of strong resistance on the hourly chart, and you're also getting this. You're getting this 200-day coming in right here. So I would expect that maybe it's going to struggle with that, and then get like that. Maybe that might be the kind of move that you might be looking at on it. But right now, it's uptrending, with that move. So I think it's actually, it's looking like it's trying to turn around. I could day trade this. I could possibly even swing trade it and be very careful on the swing trade. Maybe if I'm considering this as you see this on a shorter time frame, you almost got basically a head and shoulders that is kind of formed here as well. So, yeah, this has some real possibilities. Okay, let's see. So we had Palantir, and I don't think I see anybody else that's asked about anything. And we are at 8:40. Guys, thank you so much. I appreciate you. Have a great day. Good luck with your trading. And let's, whatever happens with NVIDIA, I think that actually could set the market sentiment. So remember that as you go into tomorrow's trading or go into the post-market today and begin thinking about how you're going to position yourself for the tomorrow and the coming weeks. Have a great day.